Come, let us fix our eyes on Jesus. This is Unpopular Theology, Episode 3. Today is the commemoration of Johann Walter. What's a commemoration and who's Johann Walter, you might have just asked? Well, I'm here to tell you. That's why this episode is called An Introduction to Commemorations and the Commemoration of Johann Walter. So, a commemoration is a day where the Lutheran Church remembers a non-New Testament saint or a minor New Testament saint. It's the only difference between a commemoration and a feast or a festival. Feast or festival, we remember an apostle probably, or let's see here, I'm trying to think of Saint Mary, Saint Mary Magdalene. We remember the major saints from the New Testament. For a commemoration, we remember like the prophet Elijah, a reformer, a church father, someone along those lines. And we do this all the time outside of the church. Even if your church doesn't do this, you do this. I think about family. Perhaps we remember a loved one on the day they die, the anniversary of the day they died, or on their birthday after they've died. We do this in sports all the time. In high school, I managed girls basketball and football. So for football, we had in the equipment room / assistant coach's office, we called it the dungeon because it was kind of downstairs and out of the way. We had 2 jerseys hanging up. And my senior year, I finally found out who they were. They were players who had gone on to serve in the military. Now, we certainly had more players that went out and served in the military. I can think of at least 2 offhand. But these 2 had an exceptional work ethic. I think they both went to the Air Force. I might be wrong on that. And they were there to remind our players of the work ethic they had and that they too should have that work ethic. For girls basketball, in a more visible place, we had the 1,000-point club. And that was right in the gym for everyone to see. And there were 2 reasons for that. Number one, the one that I'm most convinced of, is that it was to remind our players and our fans, and maybe to intimidate the opposing team as well, that, we had some pretty great players. The second reason, during practice, maybe it would be a thing that a girl could look to and be reminded of a player that they know on that list and be reminded of her work ethic and maybe get her to continue through practice. So why does the Lutheran Church do this? Well, according to Article 21 of the Augsburg Confession, our churches teach that the remembrance of the saints should be commended in order that we may imitate their faith and good works according to our calling. That's not to say that they are more saved than us or that we should pray to them. On the contrary, it's to show that they were just like us, and yet they still kept the faith even in hard times. Or they composed great church music, or what have you. Article 21 of the Apology, that's the defense of the Augsburg Confession, lists 3 more reasons. Number 1, to give thanks to God. So, for example, I give thanks to God on St. Patrick's Day that St. Patrick went to Ireland to spread the gospel and converted my ancestors. To strengthen us in our faith, so we remember that they went through trials and tribulations as well. And it's a good reminder that when we struggle, we can look, well, first of all, we should look to Christ. We can also see how they persevered in the faith. And then they are examples to us. So perhaps a good hymn writer could be an example to a person who writes hymns that they can look at and say, he wrote good hymns. Or a missionary can look at St. Patrick, St. Boniface. There's a lot of missionaries that we commemorate. They can look at them and look at their good deeds and being inspired to do the same. So how do we do this? Well, we do this by singing hymns. If the person who is commemorated wrote a hymn, we sing it on that day. Like St. Patrick, we can sing, I bind unto myself today. Or, if it's somebody like St. Boniface, who I'm pretty sure didn't write any hymns, you can sing a song about missionaries and witnesses. If it's somebody like St. Athanasius, you can sing a song about the Trinity. Those are all good things. We also do readings. We can do readings. Now, obviously, if it's an Old Testament prophet, they're a lot easier to do. You can pick a reading. Like for the prophet Jeremiah, you can do the Call of Jeremiah. Or the prophet Elijah, you can do Elijah being taken up into heaven in the chariot. But for people who are outside the Bible, perhaps for someone like St. Patrick or St. Boniface, you can do Jesus Sends Out the 72. Or for a hymn writer, you could do a psalm or two. These are just suggestions, but I think these are good practices. So now we get into the person that we are commemorating today, Johann Walter. So he was born in 1496, that's 13 years after Luther was born. At the age of 21, he became a composer and bass singer in the chapel court of Frederick the Wise. Frederick the Wise, we'll do an episode on him later. He was Martin Luther's protector. He was the Elector Prince of Saxony. He helped found the University of Wittenberg, and just overall a very pious man. He was a Kantor, that's a church musician, for 30 years. Now I think I pronounced Kantor wrong. It might be pronounced Kantor. It's spelled with a K. That's why I'm confused. If there's a person who knows German, maybe they can correct me. He helped Luther compose the German Mass, which is a very big deal. It was the first time in a while that the liturgy was in the common language. And he's considered the first Lutheran composer. And as you probably know, Lutherans are known for their music. So he helped start that line. So what can we do to celebrate him? Well, we have one hymn, unfortunately, that made it into the hymnal, only one. It's called The Bridegroom Soon Will Call Us, so we can sing that. It's an end times hymn, so there's going to be a lot of eschatological language in there. We can also read Psalm 149. There's other psalms you could use. I just found that to be a very good one to remember him. Know this video is a little short, but thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, go ahead, like, subscribe, go over to our Facebook page, like us there. We post new stuff every day. Tomorrow we're going to post something on the Feast of St. Mark. Next week we're going to be talking about Saints Philip and James. Until then, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus.